before us. The memorandum of objects and reasons as it relates to this matter, I believe, are quite clear, and I believe that the arguments that have been brought forward today by the Leader of Government Business, Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith, Senator Charles Sinclair, and indeed His Worship Senator Delroy Williams have been pointed, solid, and convincing. Yes, the long title friend that we have in the chamber. You know, the thousands of people who benefit from the economic activity in the markets will be very, very appreciative of the work you have done in building markets. And I use the opportunity to congratulate you for being known as a market builder. Mr. President, the approach this administration has taken to the issue of local government as a whole, I think, warrants commendation. When one looks at the investments made in the Jamaica Fire Brigade, it shows a government that cares about local government. When one looks at the recent investments into the National Solid Waste Management Authority by way of 50 new garbage trucks, it shows a government which cares about local government. When one looks at the announcements for the future of waste management in the country, which is a preeminent focus of local government, it shows an administration that cares about local government. When one looks at the investment that has been made since 2016 into parochial roads and into drain cleaning, it shows a government which cares about local government. When one looks, Mr. President, at the unprecedented investment and overhaul of the nation's infirmaries, it shows an administration which cares about local government. I could go on and on, but that one is important. When one looks at the investment in indigent housing, Mr. President, it shows an administration that cares about local government. When one looks at the support given to the nation's councillors, unprecedented support through budget allocations of the Ministry of Local Government, it shows an administration that cares about local government. Now, oftentimes I hear the debates in this chamber and indeed in the other place, and one wonders if colleagues don't read the newspapers, don't watch international news, because it seems that we behave as though we live in a bubble. We behave as though the world is not seeing the most significant armed conflict, certainly in the European continent, since World War II. We behave as though the economic shocks related to COVID-19 were not the most significant economic shocks since the 1920s. We behave as though the loss of productivity, human life, man hours, family time, interaction, from the health impact of the COVID-19 pandemic was not the worst since the Spanish flu. Mr. President, I am clear that we do not live in a bubble. And I am clear that when I look at point 2, B2, the high level of uncertainty in the global economic environment, which may have domestic implications and requires the government to focus at this time on building resilience to possible future shocks, as well as setting the country on a path of sustained growth. Mr. President, I am satisfied with my knowledge of what is taking place globally that this is necessary, that this point should explain clearly to colleagues on that side and those watching at home that Jamaica needs a little more time. The reality, Mr. President, is as much as we have recovered to the point of great launch. We all would recall those months leading into the first COVID case in Jamaica. All of the consumer confidence indices, the business confidence indices, were at that moment in uncharted territory. We had never seen the level of hope in the Jamaican future that we were experiencing at that moment. Mr. President, many areas of Jamaican life and society have recovered from the COVID-19 pandemic because of deliberate policy choice and sound management. But, Mr. President, we have a little way left to go. And to ignore that we have not completed total recovery in all aspects of society, allowing us to move forward, would be unfortunate. Mr. President, there is no doubt that the country is on path to phenomenal growth. There is no doubt, however, that the global risks are significant. But simultaneously, the public should have no doubt about our care and commitment to local government when one contemplates the significant increases in investment in all aspects of local government made by the Andrew Holness-led administration since 2016. Mr. President, I asked an interesting question, and no, I can speak to it because I wasn't on the Joint Select Committee and the matter is not yet complete. And I'm sure it could trigger side talk and sort of voce comments. But I asked for the definition of a parish because depending on the dictionary you choose to use and which site you choose to use via Google, I found 13 such definitions, from the religious ones to ones that would classify it similarly to how we classify a parish council division as opposed to a parish, to ones that go much further. And I asked for where the definition lay. But in my own understanding of how Jamaicans see their parish, I understand why Portmore deserves to be declared a parish. You have the sense of ownership that we even see on display in this chamber when someone says, no, I come from my country. When we talk so fondly about the fact that we come from the West, or that we hail from Clarendon, or St. Mary, or St. Elizabeth, as Senator Hill will do. The ownership and the deep sense of pride we take in where we come from. Hado. Absolutely. The ownership and the deep sense of pride we have from where we come from because of the distinctive realities of that place tells us that that sense of identity is due to the people of Portmore. We have done things backwards in this country many times since independence. This is not a practice that should continue. It is my firm position that that exercise related to Portmore should be complete before the local government elections are held. Now, the matter of general elections, referenda, and local government elections, it is impatient of debate. There are sufficient articles that can be quoted from sources, from newspapers, current and past, that speak to the need of consolidation. I believe this extra time also allows for the consideration, the discussions, and the consultation to see exactly how that works and to see what is indeed best for us as a democracy. I'm going to make two final points in closing, Leader, if you'll allow me. Well, thank you so much. If we speak about the definition of democracy. And I was particularly intrigued with the contribution of Senator Sinclair, President. The concept of democracy. Generally, that the will of the people is what prevails. Now, I firmly, 100% reject that suddenly the opposition has become fans of democracy and the will of the people when they constantly come here and reject the will of the people by way of the extension of states of emergency measures. Because that is the will of the people. That's one. The other, you want to vote for the people, but you don't vote for the people. You don't vote for what the people want. You know, leader said make 3 more points. So the other thing that the public should be aware of is that a lot of what you're hearing in this chamber and in that chamber from that side is theatrics. It is. Politics is primarily local. But local in the context of what I'm speaking about is the fact that they themselves are having particular internal challenges in the organization that makes up the opposition. And there is a huge pull, Mr. President, between who and where and how their party should be led. It is well known that there are people in the opposition who would happily see the current leadership change, but know it cannot happen until they face the electorate. Mr. President, this is a farce and excitement and theatrics, and they know it. The final point, Mr. President. The final point, Mr. President, is in relation. You should. The final point, Mr. President, I was particularly disappointed in the content in closing of my friend and colleague's presentation, Senator Crawford. I believe in closing, though asked in the form of a question, as I understand, you flew in the face of the intent, the intention, and the spirit of the standing orders. It was most egregious, and I found it to be against the spirit of what we do here, because it called into question the character of the entire government side here and in the other place, and it ascribed motive where there is none. Now, you made a particular statement as it relates to a matter of national debate and national concern as it relates to bankrolling of the JLP by SSL. Now, it's egregious, it's unfortunate, it is untrue, and I reject it. It is hurtful to the people who have lost their money because of fraud by people unconnected to this side. And I, for one, am offended. It is not the case, and it should be rejected. And the truth is, Senator, you should withdraw it. You should withdraw it. No, you should. The reality, Mr. President, we use these terms when we're debating politically. This love for democracy, this commitment to how we finance elections. And we throw out things in the way Senator Crawford threw out things. And I think it was unfortunate. And I think it should be withdrawn because you know it not to be the case. Mr. President, I support the bill before us. I support the commitment to democracy. I believe this administration has done more for strengthening the institutions of local government than any previously before us, and I thank you.
Thank you, Senator Samuda. Senator Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. This morning, among the documents tabled before us is one dealing with the Emergency Powers Act. Senator Samuda just raised the issue of the SOEs and the will of the people. It's interesting that if that represents the will of the people, why is there no effort being made to extend it? We don't, you have the majority, man. You can do it. So, point I'm making, it is the nonsense. It is the nonsense. It is the nonsense that is being advanced as an excuse. Because so many SOEs that have come and ended, and they have had the power and the authority to renew it. They haven't done so. In fact, 2 members on that side have said that to renew it after it not receiving a vote would be unconstitutional. But the Prime Minister, nevertheless, went ahead and announced new SOEs. So don't use that, my friend, Matthew Samuda. It's so vacuous the position of the opposition of the government is relative to that. So, Mr. President, there's no need for a long presentation on the local government elections. Suffice it to say that this government recognizes that in 2016 an effort was made 2015-2016, to stop the practice of putting off local government election to suit the whims and fancy of the party in power. And I accept Senator Sinclair's point that it wasn't deeply entrenched. So that, like a general election, you can't put it off indefinitely. But let us have no doubt that the reasons advanced by the government in the Memorandum of Objects and Reasons accompanying this bill are really, in my view, not factually based. If my colleague, Senator K.D. Knight, was here, and look at these 3 points, he would say, but the government is pathologically mendacious. He would have said the government is pathologically. He would have said the government is pathologically mendacious. And let's go through the issues. In 2016, when the government found $600 to $800 million for the de-bushing campaign, so they could have a local government election, Portmore didn't prevent them from doing that. The only thing that might have prevented them now is that the Contractor General came out in a damning report. Contractor General Integrity Commission, in a damning report about that $600 to $800 million de-bushing contract. I can understand if you say there's a lack of resources and too much oversight by the Integrity Commission for you to call the local government election because that $600 to $800 million de-bushing is not going to be easily spent. I could understand that. But certainly, Portmore did not prevent them in 2016 from calling the local government elections. So that is really a scam to tell me no, that it is Portmore why you're not calling the elections. The second leg is that high level of uncertainty in the global economic environment. President, last budget debate, the opposition raised the question of economic uncertainty. When the Minister of Finance came to close the debate, he accused us of preaching doom and gloom. 1 year after, with a massive surplus in revenue, this government now says it's not doom and, it is doom and gloom to call the elections. An election which France called, you know. An election which Italy called, you know. And did the UK have local government elections too? So this argument about economic uncertainty, Senator Crawford dealt with it. It's really a sham. It's a subterfuge. It's not real. The third leg is that it's a high monetary cost. And Senator Sinclair, if they had argued that your proposal for same-day election was the reason, I wouldn't think it's a scam. It would make some sense. Not that I agree with it. But certainly these three reasons given don't hold water. They're just saying that you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. And this is an attempt at trying to fool all the people all the time. So, President, the third leg says the high monetary cost of holding elections. That by itself has never been a reason not to have elections. There's never been a reason not to have elections. It says it requires efficiency in spending on elections. That goes to the 2 elections. But if you postpone this temporarily to next year, February, are you committed to holding the general elections between now and then? Are you committed to holding the general election in the 90 days window leading up to the 28th of February 2024? I don't think so. So this again is a sham. It is a sham. Just as Mr. President, the talk in 2016 of a fixed date election was a sham. It was a sham. And I'm glad, Mr. President, you have now disowned that view of a fixed date election. I have always held the view that fixed date election was not a course we should have adopted. So I'm not a fixed date election person. But I could see the scam when it was proposed in 2016. I know the government had no intention of so doing. Absolutely no intention. It was a buy the vote. Get people to vote because somehow there's a magic in the fixed date. And the president is correct. When Britain tried it, and when Britain called how much elections before the fixed date, it just shows that that fixed date thing was nothing more than a scam. So, the government also promised prosperity in 2016. And the admissions in number 2 and 3 is an admission that the prosperity promised to the people is somewhere far away off. So there's no prosperity for the people, and you therefore can't call the elections in the absence of the prosperity promise. Another promise which was made was about sleeping with your doors open and waking up in the morning and still being alive. The government has failed to reduce murders and to reduce crime in the country. In fact, in every single year of this government since 2016, the crime rate, the murder rate, has been higher than any time in the last PNP government. Facts. Facts. I'm glad you and I are agreeing on the murder rate. I'm glad you and I are agreeing on the murder rate. You and I can agree. You and I can agree about the absence of water in Venice, but we're not going to argue around these issues here. So the promises made to the country by this government are illusions, never to be achieved. And therefore, the government is afraid to face the people. Yes, you are. And Mr. President, let me make it clear. We didn't vote against taking this bill today. But left to me alone, would have voted against it and would have lost the vote. But there's no urgency in bringing this bill. Because whether this bill is passed or not, there can be no election held in Jamaica by Tuesday coming, the 28th. And it's because of the bungling and the chaka-chaka approach to governance by this government. That's fine, but we transfer it over there back. So, the reality is, this government could have brought this bill weeks, months ago, and let the country know that there'll be no elections. Because I said, whether we pass it or not today, there can be no elections on Tuesday. Because that would require president declaration or proclamations. It would require nominations. It would require a minimum period between announcement and nomination, and between nomination and election. So there can be no election. So there's no rush to bring this other than to try and take shame out of the eyes of the government. And before I close, Mr. President, I just want to say to my friends over there, it's nice to have 49, but don't think 49 is permanent. I've seen government, including your government, with 60. I saw you with 60. And then there's a local government election in 1986, which you lost badly. But hear what hurt you now. After the 89 elections, you had 18 years in opposition. That should hurt.
So why you try to 18 years of separation? Why you try to
No, you're not going to get it. That's why you're afraid of calling the elections. I am saying to you, you have spent 18 years. You spent 18 years because the people...
I know you want your 48 now. I know you want your 48 now.
You have spent 18 years in opposition because the people paid you back for the abuse of the electoral process in the 80s. So, given my experience I'm not worried about your 49. Not worried about your 49. Because that's temporary. That like this bill is temporary. What this government faces, Mr. President, is that we are approaching an election that had to be called in the middle of the public backlash to the demolition man going to Clifton and licking down poor people's house. The backlash from that has meant no matter how much market you fix in Papine, the people are going to pay you back for bulldozing poor people's house. And for doing so on the basis that it is gang members who are selling the land. The people are ready to pay you back for that. Mr. President, the people are ready to pay back this government for the fiasco of the Road Traffic Act and the oppressive fines which people feel have been laid on them by this government. The people are ready. You spoke already now. You spoke already. You spoke already. I don't want to interrupt him, Mr. President. I'm not engaging him. I don't want to interrupt him. The people are ready to pay you back for the traffic fines and the fiasco of implementing the Road Traffic Act. And you are afraid of facing the people. So you're afraid for the demolition, you're afraid for the traffic, and Mr. President, the people are concerned about the failure of proper oversight of the SSL issue. The people want to pay you back for a minister having a report in his office for 1 year and can't find it. No, 2 years since it's the other day, I'm going to look for it. Tell him, say, we're talking about Nigel and the document in the filing cabinet. The people are ready to pay you back for that. The people are ready to pay you back for the hardship that they're suffering now throughout the length and breadth of the country. The people are prepared to pay you back for the damning Integrity Commission report and the Westcon contracts. The Director of Public Corruption Prosecution may not act, but this is a moral issue. And the people are upset that your Prime Minister made those recommendations for the contract. The people are ready to pay you back. So, Mr. President, I can say it anywhere. I'm a smart man. I know how to say things. I was on radio and tried to sue me and couldn't do it. So let me be clear. I'm not afraid of saying it, that the people want to pay on the back for what they perceive to be corruption in the Westcon deal. The people want to pay you back because you are a government that they see as highly corrupt. So I have no doubt that, like Trump, who said he would have won, like Mitchell in Grenada, who said he would have won, that you will lose. That you will lose. So I don't worry about who says what. Because just as the president said one thing about fixed election, and now assume a different position on fixed election, I know that you are malleable and that you are not wedded to any position like fixed election, sleep with the doors open, 5 in 4. So, Mr. President, Mr. President, it's clear to me why the election is being put off. Nothing to do with COVID. Because we call a bigger election in the middle of COVID. Not because of economic uncertainty. Because the truth be told, the world is less uncertain than it was last year, and more so 2020. So, when you declared the other day that you have a miracle growth and a miracle economy, but you're afraid to call the elections, the two don't work. So this senator, along with those who are left here and those who had to leave and who were not present for other reasons today, the opposition is going to vote against this. Your 13 may be strong enough to win the vote. I'm not sure if your 13 is strong enough to move the executive director of the Integrity Commission. We heard your plea. We heard the 13 of you calling for his removal. I won't bother comment on it and which side of history it has left you all. But it's not far, Senator Braham, from the 8th who had signed and dated letter of resignation. So if that 13 of you did it, who won't face the Integrity Commission? It won't face the executive director. But it shows how scared you are and why you can't call the elections. They're all connected. May the damning report of the Integrity Commission find sunshine. May it find sunshine. May the fiasco of the traffic thing never be repeated. May the failure for SSL oversight never be repeated. And Senator Gale, may the compensation review be positive, because now it's confusion and uncertainty among too many workers. There are those who felt that the compensation review would have resulted in the local election coming right after. But you and I know, no, not you, I know that there's been so much uncertainty and concerns and incompleteness and disappointment with the compensation review. That too, Mr. President, is another reason why they can't call the elections. So let's put it this way. Democracy is too important for us to treat it with expediency. And that's what is happening here with this bill. Expediency. The absence of principle and belief in democracy. And Minister, when next you speak as Foreign Minister about a coup somewhere, I can hear them quoting your speech today to say, they stand with democracy. That's the coup leaders, where you stand with democracy.
Same place.
And they say the kettle shouldn't curse the pot. But for me, on our side, we stand firmly with democracy. And the Gleaner is correct this morning. It may be not too late for you to step back and change it. I therefore, Mr. President, hope that when we come to the vote, which I hope will be soon, you will get our vote of no, and we will go, and you can be comforted that you stab, that the government has stabbed democracy in the heart. May it please you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Minister?
Mr. President, thank you. Sorry. And thank you to all colleagues who have contributed to the debate today. Just very quickly before I get into the matters of the actual debate, I just want to quickly touch on the matter of the murder rates. We all agree in this House, in this chamber, that they've been too high for years. But we give thanks that due to the many efforts underway, including states of emergency, that they have had us starting the year with more than 30% reduction in murders, 26% reduction in shootings, 44% reduction in rapes, and an overall 31% reduction in crime. So we continue to work towards the aspiration of sleeping with our windows and doors open, as we know is the hope and dream of each and every Jamaican here and abroad. And we will continue to walk with the people in our efforts and in our vision, which continues to be in our hearts and minds, that of a peaceful Jamaica. Now, I'm not going to follow Senator Brown down many of the other paths he seemed to want to lead us. But regarding Westcon, I just want to say that people are upset, but they are not upset at the Prime Minister. He did nothing wrong. And they see that, despite the best efforts of some to paint it otherwise. But they are upset, and they do question the actions of the Integrity Commission, as they saw and understood that there was no fairness in the actions taken by them. And they have way more questions for that commission and about how they approach this awesome power that they have been given. Way more questions for them, Mr. President, than they have for the Prime Minister. Mr. President, they know that this government and indeed this Prime Minister has done more to strengthen not only the anti-corruption architecture of Jamaica, but he has done more to strengthen the local government architecture as well. Mr. President, this government believes in democracy, in the rule of law. We are asking today no more than that the Parliament do what it is in Parliament's power to do. The government, this government, cherishes its democratic identity and its DNA. Absolutely. It flows through both our domestic and foreign policy and extends in a way that side cannot see. Yeah. It certainly, Mr. President, extends beyond the specific issue before us today, the extension of the period within which local government elections are to be held. For that is the matter before us. Mr. President, I want to reiterate the point of our interest and desire to ensure that the people of Portmore have their representational anomalies addressed in the best way possible, which would mean that these issues should be addressed before the next local government election, in which they would then clearly participate in a context of clarity. On the matter of the economy, as I said before, Jamaica is mounting a strong recovery, and we are proud of that. But we are not where we want Jamaica to be. So yes, we had intended when we took office to focus on constitutional reforms. But we did instead decide to focus on getting water, light, roads, and more houses to people who are done without for years. We focused on reducing taxes that were imposed by the PNP and that had been strangling businesses for years, so that they could grow and employ more people and support more families to build stability and wealth. During COVID, we focused on pandemic support for the most vulnerable, increasing path to women, to children, for persons with disabilities, making sure people were safe and healthy as best as possible. And we focused on keeping people in jobs so that they could take care of their families. We were concerned with people's needs, Mr. President, and we will not apologize for that. And that is why the people rewarded us with 49 seats in the lower house. And we're not saying that that is permanent, because we respect it and we don't take it for granted. And that is why we continue to work with the people, and the people continue to work with us. Mr. President, I just want to remind through you that yours is an administration which, even while the world was in an economic boom, we were in negative growth as a country with sky-high unemployment. And we have changed that. We have changed that. Not only unemployment and youth unemployment, but unemployment for women and men. Now it's 3 percentage points apart. For decades, it was 10 percentage points apart. It was always double, and we have changed that. You were the ones who said 1.5 couldn't work, and no more than 400,000 PAYE workers no longer pay income tax. And I say that to say, Mr. President, that we are unlikely to follow your assessments of what is and is not possible. We are unlikely to follow your analysis of what should and what should not be done to grow an economy or to protect our people. We were balanced, we were cautious, and we were still visionary. And so we continue to be, Mr. President. Mr. President, just before I close, and I want to just remind for those who are seeking to say that we don't value local government. And after having heard about the massive investments that we have made in indigent housing, in kitchens, soup kitchens for the homeless, in our infirmaries, in fire stations, in garbage trucks to ensure that we can keep the place clean as possible. Mr. President, this is the birthday of the Right Excellent Sir Alexander Bustamante, former member of local government, former Prime Minister of Jamaica. And I want to just remind this chamber of why it is that the JLP used to be called the Gully government. It was because after we won that first election under universal adult suffrage, among several other groundbreaking people-based initiatives, Sir Alexander led his team on a wide campaign to build and fix gullies to control the floods that had been taking lives for years. In addition to building and rebuilding of hundreds of schools, we fixed gullies and saved hundreds of lives. And Kingston continues to benefit from those gullies to this day. So we continue to reap those benefits. We continue to do our best to positively impact lives, and we continue to do the actual work of local government. You've heard the examples. I need not repeat them, but we continue to keep the work going that is closest to the people, building markets, Senator Councillor, building markets and repairing them when they are destroyed. So we intend to honor our heritage. We intend to live out the democratic ideals in our DNA. And this government is committed to holding the next local government elections in the shortest time practicable as provided under law. The delay is not perfect. The delay is not optimal. But as arrangements continue to be made for the divisions where the vacancies exist, with the assurance that work continues in the 15th parish process, when the election is held, it will be held for the first time since universal adult suffrage, where the residents of 15 parishes will elect their local government representatives. And we look forward to that day. And it is in this context, Mr. President, that I ask for second reading of the bill.
Members, the question is that the bill be read for a second time. Those in favour? Against? Madam Clerk?
A bill entitled An Act to Temporarily Modify the Representation of the People Act in order to postpone the holding of a general election of members to serve on the respective councils of municipal corporations and a general election of the mayors of city municipalities read a second time.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The Senate will now resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause. Thank you. I put clause 1. Those in favour? I put clause 2. Sorry, the ayes have it. I put clause 2. Those in favour? No, but it's only 3 of them, so it can go on. Call the roll. You know, I'm going to say it, I've been saying it, and we have been saying it in other places. We are using the divide, we are misusing the notion of this divide, but we will deal with it sooner than later. Go ahead. Senator Brown? What was that, Senator Brown?
Senator Allen?
No.
Senator Braham? Senator Bunting? Senator Brown?
No.
Senator Campbell?
Yes.
Senator Campbell Rodriguez? Yes. Senator Crawford? Senator Fraser Beans? Senator Gale?
Yes.
Senator Golding Campbell? Yes. Senator Hill?
Yes.
Senator Johnson Smith? Yes. Dr. Longmore? Yes. Dr. Morris? Senator Morris? Senator Samuda?
Yes.
Senator Scott Motley? Senator Sinclair? Senator Webby?
Yes.
Senator Williams?
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. There are 12 ayes, 5 noes, and 3 absent. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. There are 12 ayes, 5 noes, so the ayes have it. I put clause 2. Those in favor? Aye. No. Divide is not a vote. I put clause 2. Those in... What is that? Nay. Those in favor? Those against? Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, let's go.
Senator Allen?
No.
Senator Braham? Senator Bunting? Senator Brown?
No.
Senator Campbell? Yes. Senator Campbell Rodriguez? Yes. Senator Crawford? No. Senator Fraser Beans? No. Senator Gale? Yes. Senator Golding Campbell? Senator Hill? Yes. Senator Johnson Smith? Yes. Dr. Longmore? Yes. Dr. Morris? Senator Gabriela Morris? No. Senator Samuda? Yes. Senator Scott Motley? Yes. Senator Sinclair? Senator Webby? Yes. Senator Williams?
In relation to the divide, ayes 12, 5 noes, the ayes have it. I put the title and enacting clause. Those in favor? Aye. Against? The ayes have it. The question is that I do report the bill as having passed committee stage without amendment. Those in favor? Aye. Against? I do report the bill as having passed committee stage without amendment.
Mr. President, might I ask for third reading of the bill?
Members would have heard the question. Those in favor? Aye. Against? Madam Clerk.
A bill entitled An Act to Temporarily Modify the Representation of the People Act in order to postpone the holding of a general election of members to serve on the respective councils of municipal corporations and a general election of the mayors of city municipalities, read a third time and passed.
Mr. President, it is not intended to do is not intended to do any further business today. Might the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed?
Thank you, Minister, and thanks to...
Before you adjourn, I've seen that there's been the distribution of some of the... Yes, on this side seem to be sparse with that. On this side.
It's an oversight. You'll get your copy, no doubt. I'm instructed that the office of the Leader of the Opposition indicated to the clerk that all of your copies were to be sent up to his office. So, thank you very much. The question, members, is that the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed. Those in favor? Divide.